So we got to talk about exercise, because I know, especially for weight loss, because I know so many of you, once you start fasting, you're like, exercise, schmexercise. Like, I found a tool to lose weight. I don't need to exercise. You need to exercise. So there's so many reasons why I want you to exercise, but on this video, I really want to talk about weight loss and exercise, because I want to make sure those of you that are really working hard to really drop some weight, I want to make sure you're doing it in a smart way, not in the old-fashioned way where we used to be like more restriction and more discipline. You don't have to do that anymore. You actually can lean into science and look at what science has taught us when it comes to weight loss and exercise. And if you pair what I'm about to say with a fasting lifestyle, you've got yourself some gold, some weight loss gold. So here we go. Ready? So what the science says, and I'm going to give you sort of two avenues to look at this, and then in the end, I'm going to kind of bring them together and how it would look in a week. But what the science says is that the best way to lose weight is through high intensity training. So you can dive into that, to the most current research that I'm looking at. But I've seen this in our Reset Academy. We do a workout every Saturday morning, and I mix up HIIT training with the next workout I'm going to tell you about. But whenever we do, every couple of months, we do something called a fat burner reset, where we just come together as a worldwide community and we practice different principles of fasting and exercise and food to be able to lose weight. And during those weeks, I always do HIIT training. And I lead the exercises most of the time, which is really fun. So come join us. We'll put a link for the Academy in here. But what I want to emphasize to you is that when you are HIIT training, you are bringing your heart rate and your respiration rate up, and then you're giving it a rest. And then you're bringing it back up, and then you're giving it a rest. And what that does is it signals to your body to start to release a hormone called growth hormone. And growth hormone burns fat. And once growth hormone is on the scene, it starts to melt fat away. So if you are getting stuck with weight loss, more of this up and down with your respiration rate and your heart rate. So it could look like a lot of different things. The original study that was done, we have a lot more up-to-date study, was done from a Japanese scientist whose last name was Tabata. And some of you may know the Tabata training. But in Tabata training, what he did is he did 30 seconds on, like, all-out exercise as hard as you can go, and 90 seconds off, where you're just resting. And he saw that when people did that style of exercise, that they didn't just burn calories in the moment, but they fired up their metabolism because they released growth hormone, and that metabolism stayed fired up for at least 24 hours afterwards. That was the original study. Now there's some new science that's saying that actually the best way to do HIIT training is to go all in for 3 minutes, like as much as you can get that extreme workout for 3 minutes, that is even accentuating fat burning even more. And I would say we're seeing this in my academy. I'm experiencing this in my own workouts, that if I can push myself for 3 minutes cardiovascularly, getting myself to about 80% of VO2 max, which means I'm bent over like sucking in air, that I can start to see the shift in the menopausal belly weight. I can feel the shift just in, I call it paddedness, that happens sometimes as you go through menopause, of just that extra padding you feel on your body. So it's in this hormonal reaction of HIIT training that the magic actually works. So you get to choose your amount. You might decide it's 45 seconds on, 30 seconds off of an exercise. You might try the 3 minutes. The way we do it in my academy is we actually do it where it's like 30 seconds of a jumping jack, and then 30 seconds of a high knee sprint, and then 30 seconds of a burpee. And we have all different levels in there doing it together. And it's when you mix it up in 30-minute chunks, the 3 minutes goes by very quickly. So HIIT training, it is your go-to when you hit that point where you're like, nothing's making sense in the weight loss world. I can't move the needle on weight loss. I want you to start to ask yourself, am I HIIT training? Am I doing enough HIIT training? So that would be a huge part of exercise. Second part of exercise, and I feel like this is very topical right now. Everybody's talking about more weights, more strength training. And I'm not saying, just because I'm over here saying HIIT training for weight loss doesn't mean I'm not saying more weights. In fact, I'm a 54-year-old woman. I am leaning into weights like you cannot believe. I'm like, how do I get more weight training? And the reason that weight training works is that you have a whole set of insulin receptor sites that get birthed as you build muscle. And the more insulin receptor sites you have, the more, think of them as little gates that you have for glucose to go into your body to be used for energy. So when we start to see that there's a bigger muscle mass in a person, whether it's a man or a woman, we start to see that they are more insulin sensitive. So there are two different ways of coming at weight loss. They both work really well, but the first and the quickest, like if it's Wednesday and you got a hot date on Friday and you're like, not feeling it in my body, I'd like to drop some pounds, do some HIIT training. That's going to be your quickest way. But if you're a 45-year-old menopausal woman and you're like, oh, menopause has just killed me, I have so much extra weight, I really want to make sure that you don't just go all in on HIIT training and that you are doing some heavy weights. Because the more muscle you have, the more insulin receptors you will have, which over time will make you more insulin sensitive. They are both really important. Now, I can tell you, I'm going to share, like, full transparency, the mistakes I made during my 40s that I am now trying to recover from. So when I first found fasting, well, back up one step, I was a competitive tennis player in college. I've been an athlete my whole life. I love working out. And when I found fasting in my 40s, I was like, I had so much energy, so much mental clarity. It kept my weight where I wanted it to be that I started doing a lot of HIIT training because it was time efficient. You don't have to do a long HIIT training workout. And I sort of skipped the weight. When I moved into my postmenopausal time, which has been in the last couple of years, I started to feel like my muscle was really breaking down. So I went back to weight training. And going back to weight training is not a lot of fun when you've been off of weight training for like a decade. So I really am now a strong advocate for women over 40. Let's start picking up the weights. Let's pick them up and let's get strong. It's really important. But it's not the only thing you should do. You also need to be thinking about HIIT training because it has that growth hormone. And the thing about growth hormone is that once growth hormone is stimulated, so it also brings along all the other hormones with it. It starts to raise all the sex hormones. So both are needed. And for me, in a weekly workout now, I'm doing 3 to 4 days of heavy weightlifting. I'm doing 2 to 3 days of HIIT training or sprints. I like to sprint and just like so that I'm so out of breath. And then I'm doing 1 day of yoga or like walking or repair. And I kind of use those three. It's like yoga, walking, hiking, HIIT training, and muscle building, strength training. I'm sort of moving through a week looking at, am I doing all of those? But if I find myself only muscle building, I remind myself more HIIT training. And when I find myself more HIIT training, I'm like, hey, we got to remember muscle building, and I've got to make sure that I lean into the other things. So that would be the one thing that I feel like at 54, if I could go back and give you some advice, those of you that are in your 40s listening to this, please don't forget the importance of building muscle because, I mean, and all the postmenopausal women here put in the comments, like, the muscle breaks down fast. So stay ahead of it. Guess what? Age Like a Girl, my new book. It's ready for pre-orders. And this is the most personal book I have ever written. And I'm so excited to bring it to you. If you are looking to reinvent yourself through the menopause process, or maybe you're on the other side and you're still looking for that reinvention, I'm going to show you exactly why menopause works in your favor and how you can make it your greatest moment yet. Age Like a Girl. Let's talk about foods and what we can lean in to eat to help the belly fat. You ready? So the first thing, for those of you who maybe are not familiar with my teachings, let me tell you what belly fat is. You know, we look at fat and we tend to think that all fat is equal, but it's not. All fat throughout our bodies, what it is your body needed a place to store excess. And sometimes it stores excess glucose because it doesn't know what to do with it. You're insulin resistant. Sometimes it stores excess toxins because the liver is working really hard to break these toxins down. It doesn't really understand how to efficiently do it, so it stores it in fat. Sometimes you're storing excess cortisol because your life is really stressful and you're making cortisol all the time, so your body put it in your belly. And sometimes it's storing extra estrogen, especially those of you that are on any kind of estrogen patches or bioidenticals, or any of you going through the perimenopausal experience where you're really having these big swings in estrogen. So we have to look at the storage of fat, and especially belly fat, much differently. We can't just put it into one category. So with that in mind, belly fat is mostly cortisol and it's mostly estrogen. This is the place that your body's going to store those two extra hormones. So with cortisol, that's a whole nother video on how do you work with your mind and your stress levels to help belly fat. That might actually be a good one to do. I don't think I've done that video yet. But for estrogen, I really want to approach 3 different food groups and how we can look at this to be able to get your body to get rid of this estrogen so it doesn't store it around the belly. So here we go. First is the first food to lean into is fatty fish. Now, I've been doing more and more on the power of fatty fish. And to me, fatty fish is everything from salmon to anchovies to mackerels. When you're going in, by the way, to do some of the more of the fattier fish, especially like the mackerels and the sardines that have a tendency to accumulate some of the toxins in our ocean, it's really good to get the baby ones because they haven't been in the ocean as long. This is a really great one put out by Patagonia that is actually has a lower level of mercury. So you start reading the ingredients and you'd be interested to see that when you get a baby version of these fatty fish, they tend to have less toxins in them. Same thing with salmon, is you really want to increase your fatty acid that have the most amount of omega-3 fatty acids in it. And if you're going, and I'll explain why here in a second, when you're looking at increasing fatty acids, we need to have that salmon be from the wild, not farm raised. So again, the nuance matters when we're trying to use tools like fatty fish to be able to help with belly fat. Now, a couple things that I want to say about omega-3s and fatty fish and why they work so well. So they're high in omega-3s, and there was a really interesting study that I want to quote and I want to quote it accurately because I think it'll help you grasp the importance of adding something in for this belly fat. So this was a 2022 study, and what they did is the researchers split groups into overweight people into 2 groups. And one group, they fed them the same diet, by the way, but one group got the omega-3 rich fish oil every single day. So they didn't do the fish, but they did fish oil, and they got it every single day for 12 weeks. And what they found was the group that had the added in fish oil had a greater loss of fat specifically around their belly weight. They also noticed improvement in cognitive function for that group. So the reason I want to point this out, because I think this is really interesting, is that you don't necessarily have to have fish every day. You could have fish oil. I will put links to my favorites here in the notes. But when we add in omega-3s, we're not only supporting better brain health, but we are helping with the breakdown of estrogen to be able to move estrogen out of the system so it doesn't turn into that belly fat. So it's like a chemistry, think of your body like a chemistry experiment, and you're adding in the omega-3s to be able to balance estrogen better so that you can be able to get that estrogen out of your system, not stored around your belly, okay? Okay, number 2, speaking of estrogen, number 2 is soy. So I'm on a mission to bring soy back because we have all the tools for menopausal women have become more narrow and more narrow. And when we go through perimenopause and menopause, it's really important that we have more food tools to be able to help the ever-changing symptoms that are coming and going, and one of the symptoms of menopause is belly weight. So what's interesting is that when we look at soy, it's a phytoestrogen. So what does that mean? A phytoestrogen means that it acts like an estrogen, it just came from plants. So a couple interesting studies, it's really important, that soy is rich in the phytoestrogen called isoflavonoids. And these will actually mimic your body's natural estrogen, not in a bad way, in a good way, and will bring up your natural estrogen levels. Now remember, when you go through menopause, if your estrogen levels go down, you become more insulin resistant. So the reason that soy as a phytoestrogen works so well is because it can help bring up your estrogen levels so you don't hit that insulin resistant place. But several studies went on to show that by increasing estrogen, you decrease belly fat. By eating more soy isoflavonoids, you increase estrogen. More phytoestrogens reduce menopausal symptoms, and that soy isoflavonoids speed up metabolism. So these were all studies that were done. I will link them in there for those of you that are science hounds so you can see. But soy has a multi-pronged approach that can be really beneficial, especially to my perimenopause and menopausal friends. Now, how should you eat soy? So for me, I love edamame. So you want to make sure it's always organic. So as much edamame as you possibly can eat would be fine. You put a little salt on this sucker, I'm pretty happy. Other forms of soy is tofu. Big fan of tofu because the high protein amount, which go watch the videos I've done on how protein can speed up weight loss. Tempeh is a great form of soy. Miso is like a miso soup is great for soy. What I'm not a fan of is soy milk, just so we're clear. Because soy milk tends to be so highly processed that it spikes your glucose. So that would be the one soy that I typically shy away from. But number 2 is let's add more soy back in. Okay, number 3 thing you can do for belly fat, and I've been talking about this a lot on this channel, which is increase your green veggies. Now, green veggies do a couple things. I'm going to share with you what is like my tried and true, what I love about green vegetables, and then I want to share some science with you that's really interesting. So think of these green vegetables as fuel for the microbes in your gut that break down estrogen. We call this the estrobolome. There are literally bacteria in your gut that break down estrogen, and they need food. And what they want you to feed them is green leafy vegetables. So when you eat more green leafy vegetables from a variety of sources, what you're doing is you're feeding these microbes that will break estrogen down. What's interesting is if you don't break estrogen down, you store estrogen. So this goes for the menstruating woman. This goes for the menopausal woman. This even goes for the man who's got the pot belly and a little bit of the man boobs and has been exposed to a lot of estrogen mimickers in his environment, and the body stored it there. So one of the best doors out of all the storage of estrogen are green leafy vegetables. Now, a couple interesting studies that I found was that by increasing, this one was a pretty good sized study. It had over 1,100 people, and they found that increasing fiber intake, so this would be fiber intake, decreased belly fat by nearly 4% of overall body weight over 5 years. Okay, so for context, just to give you an idea, this would be if you weighed 150 pounds, that's 6 pounds of belly fat that you can lose over a 5-year period. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, 5 years? What? Like, that seems forever. But when we look at the trends that happen to most people, each year they're gaining a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. So one of the things I love about fiber is not only is it feeding this microbes, but it helps to regulate your blood sugar. So just by having a salad with every meal, you're lowering the influx of glucose, which lowers the amount of insulin your pancreas has to make. You're feeding your microbes that are going to be able to get rid of estrogen. And if you do that repetitively over time, you will see a reduction in belly fat. I think it's a brilliant way to approach something that's very annoying. A couple of my favorite types of greens. I like all different kinds, but I love bok choy, I love chard, I love Brussels sprouts, I love dandelion greens. They're great for liver support. I love parsley. I'm trying to think. Mint. I put a lot of mint in my salad. Any green leafy vegetable I can get my hands on. Myself personally, I don't love spinach. It's just me. But if you love spinach, you can keep eating it. I would say something like an iceberg head lettuce isn't going to have as much of that fiber in it, and it's not going to be as nutritious as some of the ones I've mentioned here. Now, you can look at green juices. So green juices are interesting because they don't have as much fiber. It's just the nutrients that have been pulled out. But if you're looking, like me, constantly to be adding more green leafy vegetables in, sometimes juices can be good. You just want to make sure that you're not adding in the green juice with like a whole apple or pineapple, which is a very, very common way to drink green juice because it doesn't taste so good. So being able to drink the juice that doesn't have the apple can be supportive of the microbiome, can give you the nutrients you need, doesn't have as much fiber, but can also support that long vision that I'm talking about here for losing menopausal belly weight. So I hope that helps. I really am trying to make this simple for you. I know many of you that are losing weight using the principles of metabolic switching that I'm teaching here. You lose it when you go into the fasting window, but I want to make sure that we're having deeper conversations about the eating window and what we can do to lose weight with the foods that we choose to eat in there. And when it comes to belly fat, we have to bring back the fatty fish, the soy, and the green leafy vegetables. They absolutely are the hero and the antidote to that extra weight you're carrying around your midsection. So, as always, I hope that helps. If you've upped your fiber and had really good success with it, put it in the notes. In the comments, let me know. Again, we're a community here, so the more we share tips and tricks with each other, it makes everybody have the potential of winning at the game of health. Okay, are you fasting and you're still not losing weight? Check out this video because you might be missing a key part of your fasting experience that's gonna unlock weight loss. So if you think about it, all the humans that emerged out of that time have the gene that allows us to go without food. And that gene, they believe, is in all of us today.